On the show today, we'll be looking at plans by President Buhari. Well, he says he wants to achieve the plans that he has for the life of every Nigerian citizen. Of course, they're having a meeting and a retreat with the APC. And secondly, it is bad enough that they're already displaced, but an attack at the IDP camp in Borno really takes the cake. And this is Plus Politics. I am Maryann Okon. President Muhammadu Buhari has stated that his administration is committed to consolidating on the successes of the last 4 years to improve the lives and the well-being of all citizens, irrespective of their tribe or geopolitical backgrounds. Now, the president gave this assurance when he declared open a 2-day presidential policy retreat at the State House in Abuja on Wednesday. I have joining me to discuss on these gains and, of course, these plans to make our lives better, Barrister Emeka Nwadiuke is a political analyst. It's good to have you join us, Barrister.
Thank you so much.
And, of course, we have Fumi Ayola Dosomu. She's a political analyst also. Thank you very much for joining us.
Hello, Maryann.
All right, so President Buhari has reiterated his resolve, to drastically bring down the sufferings of the average Nigerian and, give us a better life. Now, he wants to consolidate on the gains of the last 4 years. But I'll start by asking, what is he consolidating on? I mean, let's find out, assess the last 4 years before we can tell if the consolidation can be actually referred to in the first instance.
Okay, I think in the last 4 years, I'm going to be, I want to be on the side of the president this time. In the last 4 years, there's been quite a bit of things that have happened. Mm-hmm. First of all, you have all this government parastatals, the single, what's the name of that? The fund, the single treasury account.
Single.
Yeah, treasury single. I mean, for instance, you have parastatals who have never remitted money to that account, remitting large amounts. People who had remitted as little as 40 million, moving up to 3 billion, 6 billion. So, I mean, on that ground, I think on one side, I think that was a good move. Mm-hmm. And a lot of people have come to realize that, okay, they can't really get away with all the misbehavior that they used to get away with before. At least there's a bit more awareness to the fact that, okay, we need to remit money and the monies are coming.
So you're saying loopholes have been plugged. In terms of financial
yes.
corruption, the president has done something?
To a large extent. Maybe to a large extent, yes.
Now, he's also said that he's going to drastically cut down the importation of goods and services into the country, which I think the central bank governor has started already. He said that he's doing this because imports were a drain on the country's resources, and the federal government would in the next 4 years promote import substitution activities to boost local production and create more jobs for the citizens. So he's talking about employment opportunities here. Yes. In the next 4 years, and we're already a few months into this administration. Yes. Is this mere rhetoric? So do you see the president doing that in the next 4 years?
It's just to say that, yes, the trade policy of import substitution is to be commended. Mm-hmm. To the extent that you have a country where a lot of resources is actually going outside. The trade, there's massive trade imbalance between Nigeria and several countries. And you even see a situation where even our oil, you have to take it to US, you refine and you bring back.
They sell it back to us.
They sell it back to us. Mm. So if someone then says that, why not we refine it here? So we have the total package, so to speak, mm-hmm. And not maybe share our resources with other people. Why not? But of course, there are so many dynamics to it. And probably as we go into the discussion, we begin to dimension some of these dynamics because, again, it's not just cut and dried like that. If you want to, for instance, begin import substitution, which is like to say you want to produce the things locally instead of...
Where are the industries? That's the first question.
Exactly. Where's the infrastructure and all that? And again, you may even see that you want to do some of these things, and some of the countries again may even retaliate through, so you begin to have like trade wars and things like that. So a lot of dynamics, and we'll see how it goes.
Let's look at some more things that the president made reference to. He talked about the fact that he's giving his past 4 years a pass mark in rejuvenating the economy, that underline rejuvenating the economy. He said when he came into office in 2015, at a period, that period there was economic recession following a sharp drop in global oil prices and years of economic and financial mismanagement. So he's saying, look, we did good in terms of the economy. And he also said that his administration restored economic growth, curbed inflation, and shored up external reserves through various monetary and fiscal measures. Fumi.
Hey, so far, I'm not sure that he said anything that is not true. True, in quote. The truth of the matter is that they came into an economy, they came into power where when the price of oil had drastically dropped from between slightly over $100 to less than $30, you know. And, you know, for a country who had enjoyed $100 for close to 2 or 3 years, there was expected that there would be some kind of reserve. We would have, you know, because, I mean, I think the budget at that time was $72, $73. That was what the budget was predicated on. And then we go up to 100 and something. Why didn't we save that money? Why wasn't it put into the reserves? So he came into town in a time when the reserves were very low, right? And the truth is, they have shored up reserves. Now, unfortunately, in shoring up the reserves, they haven't particularly grown the economy. That is where I fault the government. The economy really hasn't grown. Yes, we've done.
But he's saying that he rejuvenated. That his administration rejuvenated the economy. They restored economic growth and curbed inflation.
No, because the honest truth was the economy really wasn't going. Let's be very frank. Before the tenure of PMB, right, the economy wasn't growing. We were just spending money that we should have saved. We had spent what was saved for us. And then we're spending money in the future. We're spending futuristic money that we shouldn't have. So it wasn't like the economy was growing. It was a, quote and unquote, it was a false growth. It wasn't a growth in the economy because money that we should have kept in reserve, we were spending at that time. So we were spending monies from the future. We did not plan for a rainy day. So how do you say the economy has grown in that respect? So the economy really wasn't, at least in the last 4 years of the past regime, what we had was a stagnant economy. So, but looked like
but
it was
if all
growing.
of these incentives have been put in place, why, according to you, has the economy not necessarily been rejuvenated? Because
I think the reason really is because they didn't have the resources that they felt they would have. I mean, there was no way the president they were going to know that the price of oil was going to drop that low. Even if it dropped at all, dropping to $28 was a very sharp drop. And then on the back of the fact that they were also paying back loans that the predecessor, forgive me.
It's tricky.
You know, yes, had taken. And the funds that were coming at that time, right, were much lower than the loan repayments. So when you're paying loan repayments at, say, $45, right, per barrel, that's your loan repayment every month, and you're making 28, it's going to be tough. That's the honest truth. It's going to be tough. So I know that the economy really didn't grow, but what they tried to do was shore up reserves in event that we had another really bad.
Okay, let's talk about because you made mention of oil, which basically we drop our budgets and everything hinged on the benchmark. But then from previous governments, we paid lip service to the issue of agriculture, growing the agricultural sector. The Goodluck administration did do a bit. I mean, that is what gave the AFDB, you know, who they have right now. But are we still doing that to grow that aspect of our economy? Because there's so much in Nigeria that we haven't paid attention to. But the president is saying that they have made progress in the agricultural sector, especially in food production and processing through their food security and anchor borrowers program, which provides concessionary credit facilities to farmers and crop production. He's also said that they've also had large-scale investors in food processing and manufacturing. But recently, the former agri minister did say that we want to start exporting yams, but then we did not have enough yams to feed ourselves within the country. So I'm trying to understand if everything Mr. President is saying here is really the reality that we have on the ground. Because if it is, then we should not be borrowing to fund our budgets, or drawing up the budgets hoping that we would get some foreign monies coming in. Agriculture should be able to also, one way or the other, fund our budgeting.
Yes, as regards agriculture, the former minister, Audu, I think he seemed a bit passionate about agriculture. He made some song and dance about several issues, even said that some people were importing whatever from UK or ordering and all that pizza from UK. Yes, the anchor borrower scheme, I know that the CBN is quite passionate about supporting small growers and SMEs in that sector through the anchor borrower scheme. And aside from that, also as regards the import substitution issue, also I know recently they gave flour mills about 27 billion naira to invest in its sugar plant, which they recently opened and all that. So you see some level of commitment to actually grow the economy and grow that sector. But again, you look at it holistically, and you begin to ask whether some of these policies, there's some kind of willingness to make the policies come together and really impact the man in the street.
Let me play devil's advocate here for a while. When you talked about the budget, the problem we have with the budget, it's not like we really can't fund it. It's because the budget itself is over bloated. The current expenditure is ridiculous. The amount of money spent on things like feeding. We're still talking about the fact that in the House of Reps, the salaries are way beyond. So the budget itself has a major, major problem. We need to sit down and retweak our budget, where we're living above constantly as Nigerians. Even the average Nigerian is living above his means.
But do we see that happening at all? Because we know the recent drama that happened in the last budget before this one, the drag between the National Assembly and the executive. So if we are to decongest that budget, do you think that it's going to be an easy situation? Because everybody has interest one way or the other. We saw the padding that somewhat we have swept under the carpet, and a certain member of the National Assembly was suspended because he was talking about budget padding. So do we ever really want to change that budgetary system, or we only just speak when,
Which is why things like agriculture and stuff like that is really going to be tough to get the funding that we require. It's going to be really tough because what we require is not as much as we have portrayed. So when you require 300 million and you've portrayed 1 billion, how are you going to be able to raise that 1 billion it's like having a company that all they need to go in that company is 30 million. And then they've presented 1 billion. There's no way the size of that company, is going to determine how much they can raise. Do you understand? And so if you've portrayed something much higher, that your size can never go you to that amount. So there's no way we won't be looking for international funding. There's just no way we won't be looking at taking loans. Because as it is, we're living way beyond, like I said earlier, we're living way beyond our means.
If I may also speak to that issue. Now you see a situation, actually the sad part also is that President Buhari committed to fighting corruption and all that. And this issue of budget padding we also thought that it's one area that he could actually deal a fatal blow. But again, you see that not much has been achieved because, just like my colleague said, the budget is massively bloated, you know, and it doesn't seem like there's actually that political will to deal with that issue of budget padding. Now, that said, it also goes to, again, the issue of whether you have enough resources. Even when you say you're doing import substitution, it needs funding. Import substitution comes with incentives, just like the president mentioned, tax incentives, and even incentives like, you know, very good credit borrowing from facilities from the central bank and all that. But you see a situation where if your economy is depressed, where are you going to get the money to do all those funding? So you see it's going to be even the project, the trade policy is going to be constrained from the start.
But if we deal with electricity, if we deal with power, you know, in most
that's
companies,
a whole kettle of fish.
no, but honestly, in most companies, right, energy cost is about 40% of turnover. Imagine if we could reduce that to 10%. I mean, these flour mills we're talking about, flour mills lives 24/7 on gas. They don't even use NEPA. Their energy cost is alarming. Yes. If we can just deal with power, it would take at least 40%.
So that brings me to my next question. I might be wrong, please correct me. Could it be that previous governments and even this government are mostly putting plaster on the cancer? Instead of addressing the root cause of our problems, we're picking on, you know, things that are surface instead of addressing, because you have made an interesting point. Power a country and you have lesser problems to deal with. I mean, we talk about the ease of doing business. Power is part of the problem.
Yes, it is.
I was talking to somebody yesterday and the person said, well, we shut down today because we're tired of buying fuel. We've not had light for days and we just keep buying fuel or diesel. So these are part of the problems. Yes, government might give some tax holidays, but is that enough to cover some of the issues, the underlying issues? Barrister? It's
not, because fundamentally infrastructure is decayed, even non-existent. You know, even you are your home, you know how much power you have.
If you don't want the mosquitoes to feast on you.
You get the point. So now, like she said, many of these A-list companies, they don't even bother with your public supply because they know it's going to mess them up all the way. So they have their dedicated power and they do their thing. And then again, of course, you know, it's going to impact eventually on the pricing and all that.
Consumer gets
until we get our infrastructure right, I think to some extent the government also lost the plot along the way. Yes, they came in during while the economy was depressed. The price of the oil was down and all that, you know. But I guess somehow they didn't seem really to get a grip on what to do at some point. You know, they seem to just be kind of you know,
completely
dancing up and down as regards the economic policy and all that. So what we are hoping to see maybe in the new regime or in the new era
on the next level.
Yeah, next level is where probably there's going to be better conceptualization of some of these policies. There's really, you know, some level of rigor in dealing with, in streamlining the economic policy, which is also why perhaps the president maybe saw the need and started with this presidential policy retreat, which is the first time it's happening. Obviously, he's seen that some of these economic issues are not really being rigorously addressed. So if they can get the concepts right, I guess maybe it's a good way to start.
All right, quickly, just before we wrap up, because I've been signaled that we need to go on a break. At this retreat, the party chairman, Adams Oshomole, comrade, spoke on the economy. He said, he stated that there was a challenge, a high rate of poverty, in spite of all the efforts, and despite the fact that we are out of recession and we're able to talk about economic growth. He said, unfortunately, the rate of growth is still far less than the rate of population. He said, if our economic rate is still lower than the rate of population growth, poverty will remain endemic. Let's quickly talk about population census. I'll just quickly remind you, a certain, I think he's from the southeast. He was the boss for the NPC. He did make a statement that didn't politically sit with a lot of our politicians. Yes. Festus.
Yeah, Festus.
He did say that the numbers that we have during census are politically managed to favor certain people in certain parts of the country, that we do not have real figures, that those figures have been manipulated. And we haven't had census in the past, 10 years or 10 years plus. If we do not do a census, what kind of planning systems are we working with? Are we working with numbers from a decade ago? I'm sure a lot more children have been given birth to. So what kind of planning system are we doing? What are we planning for if we don't know how many people we have in the country? I'll give you 1 minute.
The truth is, we really don't need a census. I say this all the time. If people register births, if people register births and they register deaths, we should be able. How many countries do you hear that they do censuses?
But again, let's also take into consideration that there are people who do not necessarily register their deaths and their births. Exactly. Let's not forget.
Yeah, so that means that even if you do a census, there's no guarantee that you will get the right figures. That's what it means, really.
I think we will actually, to the extent of our level of development, yes. I guess we will need it. We need the census. Because just like you said, the framework,
way beyond
the framework is not there.
Do we have that technology you're talking about? You're making reference to technology in other parts of the world.
We have national ID cards. No, we have so much data.
But do we have
collected. We should find a way to consolidate it.
Let's even start with our elections. Do we have access to that kind of technology you're talking about? We don't.
So that's what that's the first thing we should be doing. It's not a case of spending. That's another set of God knows how much billions they will spend on entering people's houses and claiming that there are 15 people there when there are only 2. That's on one side, right? That's money going. We have so much data. People have bank accounts. We have BVN. We have national ID cards. We have certainly doing national identification. NIM. What are we talking about? That data is there. All we need to do is find a way to consolidate it.
Okay.
Yes. But like I said, I think the census is important because some of these the database, there are things it won't capture that the census will definitely capture. It's very fundamental as regards economic planning. So somewhere along the line, we're going to do it. But just like you said, much of the time it's politicized. So the gentleman, Dumodu, was talking from the point of an economist, but he didn't figure the politicians, and
he was kicked out of that job.
Got him the sack. So.
We want to say thank you to Barrister Emeka Nwaduike and Fumi Ayola Dosumu. They still are here in the studio. We'll take a short break, and when we return, we'll be speaking about the attack on the IDP camp in Borno State. Stay with us.